If someone had told me a gala of waltzes would orbit around a billionaire who never touched the floor, I would have called it branding. It wasn't the champagne in her glass or the string quartet's soft take on some old romantic standard that turned her stomach. It was the intolerable shine of other people's happiness. The way couples drifted beneath chandeliers, polished and perfect in their evening dress, as if the world were gentle, effortless, made only for them. From her post in the shadowed corner of the ballroom, arms crossed over the front of her black satin gown, the billionaire observed them all, still, unreachable, glass in hand yet untouched herself. No one glanced her way. They never did, not really. Not really. They admired her. They spoke her name with awe and calculation. They wanted favors, investments, access, but not intimacy, not touch, not presence, and certainly not love. Her life was spreadsheets, closed doors, headlines, inheritance, power. A vast empire with no one to share it with. Her parents were long gone. Her brother even longer. The board respected her. Her employees feared her. The world envied her. And yet here she was on her own birthday, hosting a black tie gala in her own mansion, celebrating a milestone she hadn't even wanted to reach. 35, single, cold, alone. She adjusted the cuff of her sleeve and pretended not to care when another slow song began. The crowd thinned to the center of the floor. The lights dimmed and a woman in a red dress laughed so openly it pierced her. She envied that laugh, that freedom, that softness. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that or danced or even been touched without it being a transaction. She felt the beginnings of a headache and considered disappearing into the corridor, escaping her own party unnoticed. But just as she turned to leave, a voice, low, feminine, edged with something teasing and intimate, slipped past her defenses like a whisper meant only for her. "You deserve a first dance, too." She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The voice was behind her, closer than it should be. Her heart lurched against her ribs, unfamiliar and startled, like a locked door thrown open by wind. Slowly, cautiously, she turned and saw her. A stranger, and yet not. The woman was beautiful in a way that wasn't careful. Wild hair, freckles across her collarbone, a gown the color of moonlight, no jewelry except a single ring on her thumb. Her lips were curved in a subtle, knowing smile. She was watching her, really watching her. No calculation, no agenda, just a quiet kind of curiosity, as if she had no idea who she was, or maybe knew exactly who she was, but didn't care. "Excuse me," the billionaire managed, though her voice came out uneven, not as clipped as she intended. "I said," the woman stepped forward just enough to bridge the space between them. "You deserve a first dance, too. Everyone else is having theirs." The billionaire blinked. She couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that without hesitation or flattery. "I don't dance," she said. "Or at least not at my own parties." "That's tragic," the woman replied, eyes dancing. "Because you look like you've been waiting for someone to ask you all night. You're not from here." It wasn't a question. "I'm not from anywhere," the woman said. "But I go where the music is." That made her smile. Just barely. A twitch of something she hadn't felt in months. The woman extended her hand, palm up. "Come on, no one's watching, and if they are, let them." Her first instinct was to refuse, to pull back into the safety of her silence and solitude. But her hand was already moving against her better judgment, against every boundary she'd built. Her fingers touched the other woman's and the contact was electric, real, warm, present, as if she'd been underwater her whole life and someone had finally cracked the surface. The ballroom was still full of dancing bodies, full of noise and elegance and superficial perfection. But in that moment, as the stranger led her gently toward the edge of the dance floor, everything else melted away. No one else mattered. Only the feel of that hand in hers. Only the possibility in those eyes. Only the voice that had whispered, "You deserve a first dance, too." And for the first time in years, the billionaire wondered if maybe she did. She hadn't touched a woman in years. Not like this. Not slowly, deliberately, with no contract, no agenda, no transactional power imbalance, just skin on skin, just music and breath. The woman's hand fit perfectly into hers, warm, calloused in a way that surprised her, like someone who worked with her hands. Not soft in the polished, perfect way of socialites, but soft where it mattered, real, grounded. Her other hand settled gently at the billionaire's waist, and she stiffened instinctively, too used to control, too unfamiliar with surrender. The stranger noticed. Of course she did. And instead of pulling her closer, she gave her space. A little space. Just enough to let her breathe. Just enough to tell her without a word. I won't push you. You come to me. And God, that made her want to close the distance. She hadn't realized how starved she was for that kind of patience. For someone who didn't demand, didn't take, but simply waited. The music shifted into a slower melody, a more intimate rhythm, and they began to move together. Awkward at first, not quite in sync. The billionaire too stiff, too conscious of herself, but the woman was easy, fluid. Her steps were more suggestion than instruction. She led without pressure. She smiled with her eyes. She didn't say anything else, just let the silence speak. It was unnerving, disarming, beautiful. You're not afraid of me, the billionaire said softly, almost more to herself than to the woman. Should I be? Most people are. That sounds lonely. It was, but she didn't say it. She just swallowed hard and glanced around them. No one seemed to notice or care that the most powerful woman in the city was dancing with a stranger at her own gala. Or maybe they noticed, but no one dared interrupt. You're different, she murmured. You say that like it's a bad thing. It's not. It's just confusing. The woman's gaze softened. So is desire. So is honesty. So is doing something for no reason other than it feels right. The billionaire didn't know what to say to that. She couldn't remember the last time she did something just because it felt right. Her entire existence had been structured, calculated, risk-managed. But this felt like jumping from a cliff with no parachute. And terrifying as it was, it also felt exhilarating. You never told me your name, she said, voice steadier now. No, I didn't. The woman's smile widened. Do you want it? Yes. A pause. A moment so charged it stole the air from her lungs. Then you first, the woman said. I want to hear your real name, not the name they put on buildings, not the name they whisper in boardrooms. Yours. That stopped her cold. Because she couldn't remember the last time someone asked her for that. Not her reputation, not her empire, not her power, just her. She looked down uncertain and then quietly gave it. Her real name, the one no one used anymore, the one that still made her feel like a girl, not an empire. The woman whispered her own name in return, like a secret, like a gift. The moment held, the music slowed, and suddenly the billionaire realized they weren't dancing anymore. They were just standing there, hands still touching, breath mingling, lost in a bubble of something neither of them dared to name. Why did you come here tonight? She asked, her voice barely a breath. The woman's reply was simple, honest, devastating. I came to see if you still remembered how to feel. And with that, she slipped her hand from the billionaire's, turned, and disappeared into the crowd, leaving only the echo of her voice, the ghost of her warmth, and the pounding of a heart that hadn't been touched in years. Alara Sloane wasn't the kind of woman who lost control. She didn't stammer, didn't hesitate, didn't let anyone get close enough to shake her. But now, alone in her private suite on the second floor of her mansion, the echo of that stranger's voice still wrapped around her like a noose made of silk. I came to see if you still remembered how to feel. The words had been soft, but they hit like a blow to the chest. She had stood there for nearly 10 full minutes after Iris vanished, unmoving, frozen between the music and the moment. And now, hours later, long after the last guest had left and the staff had retreated to their quarters, Alara sat barefoot on the edge of her velvet chaise lounge, staring at the glass of champagne she'd never touched. Her gown felt too tight now, her skin too exposed. Her mind refused to shut up. Who the hell was that woman? And how had she unraveled her with a single dance, a single question, a single look? Alara had been adored, feared, envied. She'd been kissed in public by politicians and courted by AES who only wanted her name on their arm. But no one had ever looked at her like Iris Marlowe did, like they were seeing through every layer down to the raw truth of her. Like she wasn't just a legend, but a person. A lonely, guarded, fragile person pretending to be a fortress. She exhaled sharply, set down the untouched glass, and stood pacing. She should have asked for a number, a last name, something. But of course, she hadn't. Of course, Iris had slipped away like a ghost, like a secret she wasn't meant to keep. And yet, she couldn't stop hoping she'd see her again. The thought made her furious. She had a merger to finalize in 48 hours, a board meeting to prepare, an empire to run. She didn't have time to fantasize about a stranger with eyes like moonlight and a voice that made her chest ache. But when she went to bed that night, late, tense, restless, she dreamed of fingers laced with hers, of freckles on collarbones, of being told she deserved something, not earned, not negotiated, deserved. The next morning, Alara woke early as always. She was at her desk before the sun rose, black coffee in hand, sharp suit already pressed and waiting. But something in her felt unsettled, like a wire pulled too tight. She couldn't focus, couldn't lock in. By noon, she had rewritten the same paragraph of a statement 5 times and snapped at her assistant twice for mistakes that weren't hers. "Cancel the rest of my meetings," she said. Finally standing abruptly. "I need air. Do you want the car, Miss Sloane?" No, she needed to walk. Needed to get out of the marble and glass and steel that defined her every day. And for some reason, she couldn't explain. Her feet didn't take her to the office or the gym or the private rooftop she usually hid in when the pressure got too loud. No. Her feet took her to the old part of the city. To a street of cafes and bookshops she hadn't walked in over a decade. She didn't even know what she was looking for until she saw her. Iris across the street sitting at a tiny round table outside a bookstore. Wearing a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up. A book in one hand and coffee in the other. Like she belonged to that world, like she belonged to the sky. Alara's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't possible. She didn't believe in coincidence. But there she was, as if she'd been waiting. She didn't look surprised when she saw Alara. In fact, she looked amused, like she'd known this would happen, like it was inevitable. Alara hesitated, heart thundering. She should walk away. She should retreat. But her feet betrayed her again. They crossed the street, closed the distance, brought her face to face with the woman who had taken her apart with a single dance. "You," she said, and her voice was lower than she meant. "Me," Iris replied, setting the book down. "You didn't say goodbye. You didn't ask me to stay. Is that what it takes sometimes?" Iris looked up at her, sun in her eyes, smile gentle but unreadable. "Are you asking now?" Alara didn't answer. Not directly. She pulled out the chair across from her and Saturday. "I don't know what this is." "Good. That means it's not a game. I don't have time for this. And yet here you are." Silence. Tight. Electric. Alara exhaled. "You're impossible. You're intrigued. Don't get ahead of yourself." Too late. Iris leaned back, sipping her coffee, like she had all the time in the world, like she knew exactly what she was doing. And Alara, for the first time in years, had no script, no strategy, no power to control what was happening. Only the pull of a woman she barely knew but couldn't stay away from. Alara hadn't meant to stay. She hadn't meant to sit at that table or order a coffee or spend 45 uninterrupted minutes across from Iris Marlowe listening to her talk about book cities she'd lived in, the strange art of disappearing and reappearing on her own terms. But she had stayed. And now they were walking side by side through the narrow alleyways behind the old theater district, their arms barely brushing, their shadows flickering together in the late afternoon sun. So, you just wonder. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more, and let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Alara asked, aiming for indifference, though her voice came out softer than usual. From one stop to the next. "I don't drift," Iris said. "I move toward whatever feels alive, and when it no longer does, I go." "You make that sound romantic." "It is," Iris replied. "If you're not afraid of feeling lost now and then." Alara glanced at her. The way Iris carried herself was unlike anything she'd ever known, unhurried, unbothered, yet completely present. She didn't walk like someone with a destination. She walked like someone who belonged everywhere. "And you?" Iris asked. "What you move toward." "Power, control, outcomes." "That's not what I meant." "I know." Silence lengthened between them, not empty but thrumming with everything unsaid, with all the things neither had the courage to name. They passed a mural, sunflowers exploding across brick, and Iris stopped before it, turning to face her. "You haven't asked me anything real." "And what would a real question sound like?" "Ask me why I came to your party." Alara let out a slow breath. "You already told me. You wanted to see if I could still feel." "That's not the whole truth." "No. No." Iris stepped closer. "I came because I'd heard stories about the cold, unreachable Alara Sloane, about the woman who built an empire and then sealed herself inside it." Alara's spine rose straight, reflex snapping into place. I didn't lock myself in. You did, Iris cut in gently. And I wanted to see if anyone remembered the way out. The words landed harder than Alara expected, not because they were cruel, but because they were quiet, observant, painfully precise. She looked away. You know nothing about me. That's the thing, Iris said. I think I do. Not everything, but enough to know you've been walking through life as if it were a battlefield. And I'm just wondering when you'll notice no one's shooting anymore. Alara's throat tightened. She hated that this stranger could see her. Not just the version in the magazines. Not just the legend, but her. She should have left 10 minutes ago, but her feet wouldn't move. Iris reached into her bag and pulled out a worn paperback. Here, she said, offering it. I marked a page. I think you need it. Alara took it without thinking. There, fingers brushed, and there it was again, that low electric hum under her skin. She looked down at the book, The Myth of Surrender. She opened it, eyes falling immediately on the underlined line. Some people think falling in love is like stepping into fire. Others know it's like walking into a room you've spent your whole life avoiding and finally realizing it's filled with light. Alara swallowed hard. You think I'm avoiding something? I think you're starving for something you won't name. And you think you're the one to name it? No. Iris smiled. I think you are. I just want to be there when you do. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then Alara said, This isn't a game to me. Good. I don't play games. You're dangerous. Only if you lie to yourself. Alara held her gaze. I don't lie. Then prove it. Iris stepped closer, just close enough to feel the warmth of her. Let me walk you home. Alara hesitated. Everything in her told her to say no, to retreat, to regain control. But her body was already turning, her lips already forming the one word she hadn't let herself say in years. Yes. And as they walked side by side through the city streets, closer now, something unspoken blooming between them, Alara knew this wasn't going to be easy. But for the first time in a long time, it might be worth it. Alara hadn't invited anyone into her home in over 2 years. Not without clearance, not without a reason. But somehow, without realizing how they'd gotten there, she was standing in her penthouse again with Iris. No security, no cameras, just the two of them alone in a space designed for silence, not intimacy. Floor-to-ceiling windows bled out the city's lights across the dark marble floors. The fireplace glowed low. And Iris was walking slowly through the living room, touching nothing but seeing everything. You live like a queen, she murmured. Not with envy, with observation. No clutter, no softness, no signs of life. I like order, Alara replied. Stiff control, right? Iris turned to face her. Even when it strangles you? Alara didn't answer. Instead, she crossed the room and poured herself a glass of whiskey. She didn't offer Iris one, but when she turned, the other woman was already watching her with that same unreadable expression. Part challenge, part concern, part desire. You don't let people in, Iris said. Not a question. That's not true. Name one person who's been in this room and made you feel less alone. Silence. Then you. The word escaped before Alara could stop it. Iris tilted her head, surprised but not smug. Is that why you brought me here? I don't know why I brought you here. Liar. Alara's jaw tensed. Don't call me that. Then stop lying to yourself. She took a slow step forward. You feel something. I know you do. You're just terrified of what it'll cost you because I don't know you. So ask. Alara's hand clenched around her glass. This isn't how I do things. Good, Iris said, closing the space between them. Because the way you've been doing things has left you hollow. The words hit like truth often does. Too fast, too deep. Alara tried to look away, but Iris reached up and touched her face. Gently, no demand, just fingers at her jawline, feather light and impossibly grounding. Alara's breath hitched. She didn't move. Couldn't. I should tell you to leave, she whispered. Then do it. But she didn't. Her hand came up slow and hesitant and touched Iris's wrist. Just that, just contact, but it was enough. The air changed, became heavier, charged. Alara looked at her. Really looked. Freckles, green eyes that didn't flinch, lips slightly parted like they were waiting. She stepped forward barely, but it was enough for their breath to mix for her to smell Iris's skin. Something warm, earthy, unfamiliar. I don't know how to do this, she said. Then don't do it perfectly. Just be here. Iris's voice was soft, almost a whisper. Alara closed her eyes for half a second. She let the silence hold her. And when she opened them again, she didn't think. She just leaned in, their mouths brushed. Not a kiss, not really. Just the ghost of one. A possibility. Iris didn't push. Didn't deepen it. She just stayed close, letting Alara decide. And that choice, that trust cracked something wide open. Alara kissed her. Really kissed her. And it wasn't delicate. It was raw, uncertain, unpracticed. A woman who hadn't allowed herself this kind of hunger in far too long. Iris responded slowly, easing into it, guiding without dominating until their bodies met, and Alara's hands found her waist, pulled her closer, held on like she didn't trust herself to let go. When they parted, both breathless, foreheads touching, Iris smiled. See, still alive. Alara's throat tightened. I don't want to fall. Maybe you don't need to. Iris's hand slid down to hers, fingers interlacing. Maybe you just need to let someone stand beside you. Alara didn't speak. Couldn't. But for the first time, she didn't pull away. The silence after the kiss wasn't awkward. It was electric. Alara stood still, hands still on Iris's waist, trying to catch her breath, trying to remember who she was before she tasted her. The city glowed beyond the windows, indifferent to what had just unraveled inside the penthouse, but inside Alara's chest chaos. Not the kind that screamed, the kind that pulsed quietly under her ribs, the kind that changed everything. Iris didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just looked at her with eyes that saw too much and still didn't flinch. You okay? She asked eventually, voice low, as if not to break the spell. Alara nodded, but her throat was tight. She let go of Iris slowly as if afraid that releasing her might make everything feel like a dream. She turned, took 2 steps back, picked up her whiskey, her old defense, and stared out the window. I don't do this, she said after a moment. I don't let people in like this. I know. Iris's voice came from behind her, calm, patient, and still you did. That doesn't mean I know what I'm doing. No one does. I should feel ashamed or out of control. I don't. Good. Alara turned to look at her. Iris was standing in the center of the room like she belonged there. Not as a guest, but as someone who didn't need permission, someone who existed entirely on her own terms. It terrified Alara. And yet, she wanted her closer. You confuse me, she whispered. Iris stepped forward. I think I'm supposed to. You know who I am. What people say about me. I don't care what they say. I care what you say. That landed deep. Too deep. Alara set the glass down again, crossed her arms over her chest like armor. I built my entire life on being untouchable, being safe. And has that made you happy? It's made me powerful, but not loved. Silence. Brutal. Honest silence. Alara didn't know how to respond to that. Iris took another step, closing the space between them again. I'm not asking you for a relationship. I'm not asking for promises. I just want you to admit something. What? That you wanted that kiss? Alara's eyes flashed. Not with anger, with fear. But she didn't lie. Yes. And that you want more? I don't know what I want. Then let's figure it out slowly together. Iris reached out again, but this time she didn't go for her waist or her face. She took Alara's hand. Just that. Fingers sliding into fingers. Warm, steady, real. We don't have to label this, Iris said. But don't pretend it didn't happen. Alara looked at their hands at the quiet certainty of Iris's grip. What happens now? She asked. Whatever you're brave enough to let happen. And somehow that was exactly what Alara needed to hear. No demands, no expectations, just possibility. They didn't kiss again, not that night, but Iris stayed. They talked softly, deeply long into the night, about music, about loneliness, about childhoods that never felt like home. And when Alara finally fell asleep, it was on the couch beside Iris, fully clothed, her head tilted just barely toward the other woman's shoulder. The world outside kept spinning. Her empire kept looming. But for one night, Alara Sloane stopped being the lonely billionaire and started being just Alara, seen and maybe for the first time in her life safe. Morning sunlight poured through the windows like warm silk across marble. Alara opened her eyes slowly, blinking into the unfamiliar softness of her own living room at dawn. Her body ached, not from exhaustion, but from stillness, from the unfamiliar act of resting. Real rest, the kind that came not from solitude, but from safety. Iris was still there, asleep, curled lightly on the opposite side of the couch, one hand resting near Alara's knee, their bodies not touching, but close enough that the warmth lingered. Alara didn't move. She just watched her, studied the gentle rhythm of her breath, the way her lashes fluttered, the way her lips were slightly parted as if mid-dream. For a woman who claimed not to belong anywhere, Iris looked strangely at home here in her space. Alara had spent years cultivating silence, control, and vulnerability. And yet, here was this woman breaking every rule she'd ever lived by just by being still, present, and so unafraid. Alara didn't know how long she stayed like that, just watching. But when Iris stirred, her eyes opened slowly and met hers with no surprise, no alarm, just calm awareness. "Good morning," Iris said, voice husky with sleep. "Did you watch me all night?" "Just now," Alara replied. "You sleep like someone who doesn't run from anything." "Maybe I'm just tired of running." Alara looked away. "Must be nice. You could try it sometime." Iris sat up, stretching her arms above her head with a sleepy grace that made Alara's chest tighten. "You don't have to carry everything all the time, you know. I don't know how to let go." "Then I can teach you." Alara exhaled sharply, almost laughing. "What makes you think I want to be taught?" "Because you let me stay." That landed harder than Alara expected. She stood, trying to shake the weight of the moment. "Coffee. Only if you're drinking it, too. I usually take it alone." "Not today." And just like that, Alara found herself in her own kitchen, a space she rarely entered herself, brewing coffee for someone she'd met only days ago, and yet who made everything feel unsettlingly real. Iris leaned against the counter, watching her. "You always look like you're ready to fight someone," she said with a small smile. "It's how I survived." "But is it how you want to live?" Alara paused. Her hand hovered over the coffee scoop. No answer came. Iris didn't press. She just waited like always. And Alara hated how much she needed that. The stillness, the patience, the way Iris didn't flinch when Alara didn't know what to say. She handed her a mug in silence. Iris took it with both hands, sipped, and sighed. "Perfect. It's just coffee." "No," Iris corrected. "It's a gesture, and you don't do those lightly." Alara sat across from her at the small breakfast table, a place she'd never actually used. "Why are you here?" "Because I want to be." "Why, really?" Iris met her eyes. "Because when I look at you, I see someone who doesn't know how to ask for comfort, but craves it like air." Alara's fingers tightened around her mug. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because they make me feel good." "No, not good. Messy." Iris leaned in, voice lower now. "Alara, what if messy is the beginning of free?" And that nearly broke her because it wasn't a seduction. It wasn't manipulation. It was a simple terrifying truth. Alara looked at her hands. "I don't want to need anyone." "You already do." "That should scare you." "It doesn't." "Why not?" "Because I'm not afraid of being needed. I'm afraid of being invisible." Alara looked up and for the first time saw something flicker behind Iris's calm. A crack, a scar, something old and painful. They weren't so different after all. "You're not invisible," Alara said quietly. "Not to me." The air between them shifted, and Alara knew without doubt that she was standing at a ledge now. She could step back, retreat, reinforce the walls, or she could take one step forward and let this be real. "I want to see you again," she said. "Tonight." Iris smiled, but it wasn't smug. It was soft, warm, real. "Then I'll be here." And Alara, for the first time, didn't feel like she was falling. She felt like she was landing. The second time Iris entered Alara's home, it was different. Not because the space had changed, the marble floors still gleamed, the fireplace still hummed low in the background, and the city still glittered through glass walls. But Alara had changed. She didn't hide behind distance this time. Didn't armor herself with silence or sharp edges. She opened the door with bare feet, loose hair, and no makeup. Vulnerability was stitched into every quiet detail. Iris noticed immediately and softened a response. "You look like someone who's finally breathing," she said as she stepped inside. "Don't get used to it," Alara replied, but her voice held no bite. "Just nerves, maybe even hope." Iris followed her into the living room where 2 glasses of wine already waited untouched. Alara picked one up, handed it to her, and sat down. Not across the room, but beside her. "You said you don't do this," Iris murmured. "I don't, but you want to." Alara didn't answer right away. She took a sip of wine, then set the glass down, fingers tight around the stem. You make it feel like less of a risk and more of a choice. Alara looked at her. Exactly. Iris smiled. That's all I want to be. A choice you're not afraid to make. The quiet that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was charged, waiting. Alara turned to her slowly. If I asked you to stay tonight, not for sex, not for escape, but just to be here, would you? Iris nodded without hesitation. Even if I don't know how to be good at this, there's no good. There's just honest. Alara exhaled. And something inside her cracked open. She shifted closer, close enough that their knees touched, close enough that she could feel Iris's breath. I think about you, she confessed. All the time, even when I tell myself not to. I know it scares me. Me, too. Alara reached out slow, careful, and touched Iris's hand. This time, there was no hesitation. Their fingers laced, held. Alara's heart was thawing in her chest. Not because she wanted to run, but because for the first time in her adult life, she didn't. I thought I had everything, she whispered. Then you came in and made me realize I've been starving. Then let me feed you, Iris said. Let me love the parts of you you've locked away. Alara blinked hard, her throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know enough. What if I mess this up? Iris leaned in, her voice like a secret. Then we'll figure it out together. And that was it. The moment Alara stopped fighting, she kissed Iris again, not with hunger, but with reverence, with need, with the fear and hope tangled together in her chest like live wires. Iris pulled her closer, arms wrapping around her waist, grounding her, studying her. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. Every touch was a question. Every breath was an answer. And when they finally let themselves fall back onto the couch, bodies entwined, mouths tracing skin in silence, Alara felt something terrifying and beautiful begin to root itself in her chest. Not lust, not obsession, but tenderness, something she hadn't felt in years, something she didn't know if she deserved but wanted anyway. Later, with the lights low and their bodies still tangled in the softness of each other, Alara whispered into the dark, I don't want you to disappear. And Iris replied without hesitation, then don't let me. Alara held her tighter. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like the one holding all the power. She felt like someone worth holding on to. They had slipped into something dangerously close to routine. Alara found herself looking forward to evenings more than mornings. Counting the hours until Iris would arrive with a crooked smile. A paper bag of pastries or wine, and a story about something absurd she saw on the train. The woman was unpredictable in small, beautiful ways, the kind of chaos Alara had never allowed in her life. And yet she craved it now. Craved her. That night, Iris was already there when Alara came home. She had let herself in with the spare key Alara had given her. Something so intimate, so unspoken, it felt heavier than a declaration. She was barefoot, cooking pasta in Alara's too pristine kitchen, her hair in a loose bun, humming something Alara couldn't name. Alara froze in the doorway, watching her. Something about the domesticity of it, the normally struck her so hard it hurt. Like her body realized something her mind hadn't caught up to yet. She wanted this. Not just Iris, this. Whatever was growing between them. Iris turned, grinning. You look like you just saw a ghost. Just trying to figure out how you're making this kitchen look lived in. Maybe it needed to be. Alara walked in slowly. You're staying here a lot. Iris blinked, not defensively, but gently. Do you want me to stop? No. Then what's the look? Alara hesitated. She walked over, picked up a spoon, stirred the sauce like it might help her find the words. I'm not used to this. To what? Coming home to someone, letting them see me tired or quiet or scared? Alara glanced at her. Iris didn't flinch. You're not the only one feeling this, Alara, but you're better at it. That's not true. Yes, it is. You make everything look easy. Loving someone isn't easy. Alara froze. The word slipped out like a match dropped in gasoline. Iris didn't take it back. Didn't soften it. She let it hang. Alara stared at the pot, hands clenched at her sides. Don't say that, she whispered. Why? Because I don't know if I can say it back. Iris stepped closer. Not to touch, just to be there. I didn't say it for a reply. I said it because it's the truth. Mine. Alara closed her eyes. This feels like falling. Then let yourself fall. And if I fall, I'll be there. Alara opened her eyes. That's what terrifies me, being caught, needing to be. The air seemed heavy with all the things they weren't saying. Behind them, the sauce began to simmer. Neither of them moved. Maybe I should sleep at my place tonight, Iris said quietly, no anger, just clear-eyed. Alara's heart tightened. Is that what you want? It's not what I want. It's what I think you need. Distance. Space to decide whether this is something you're choosing, not something you're just letting happen. Alara hated how sensible it sounded. She wanted to shout stay, but she couldn't, not with panic cinching her chest, a fear she had no name for. Okay, she whispered. Iris nodded, warmth in her gaze. You still know where to find me. She kissed Alara's cheek, not her mouth, not tonight, and left with a quiet grace that cracked something open in the silence after the door closed. The pasta rolled out a boil. The apartment smelled of garlic, rosemary, memory. Alara stood in the center of it all, staring at the door. Alone, not because Iris had gone, but because she had let her go. Without Iris, the apartment was too quiet. Alara had never realized how loud silence could be. She moved through her rooms like a visitor in her own life. Everything in order, everything meticulously curated, and yet nothing felt alive. The bed colder. The kitchen untouched. The playlist sterile. She had spent years constructing a life no one could use to wound her. In doing that, she had built a life no one could truly reach, until Iris. And now that Iris was gone, Alara understood what she had really watched step through that door: softness, laughter, possibility. The absence pressed in. That night, Alara tried to distract herself. She poured wine, skimmed emails, reread contract clauses she didn't care about. But whenever her focus slipped, it landed on places Iris had inhabited: the arm of the couch where she curled up, the windowsill where she once stood barefoot, watching the rain. It wasn't just longing. It was grief. Grief for something she'd almost had but hadn't been brave enough to hold on to. By midnight, Alara stood in the middle of the living room, the same one where they'd kissed for the first time, and whispered to the empty air, "Come back." But Iris wasn't someone who came back when called. She was someone you went after, and Alara had never gone after anything without a guarantee. The next day passed in a blur of meetings and unread messages. Her assistant noticed her silence. Her board noticed her distraction, but no one asked. No one ever did, because Alara Sloan didn't feel. Except she did now. That night she walked past cafes, bookstores, side streets she hadn't stepped into since childhood. Looking, not knowing where Iris lived, but hoping her feet would remember what her pride refused to admit. 2 hours later, she found herself in front of a weathered building with ivy crawling up the bricks. She had seen Iris glance toward it once when they passed it, saying nothing but smiling like it meant something. Alara stood on the sidewalk, heart pounding. She didn't know what she would say. What she could say, that would be enough. But she went in anyway. A few knocks, a long pause. Then the door opened. Iris stood there in a loose sweatshirt and leggings, barefoot, surprised, but not shocked. Alara. Her name came out like a breath. Alara looked at her. No pretense, no defense, just truth. I'm sorry, Iris didn't speak. She waited. I got scared, Alara said. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I haven't let anyone in like that in years, maybe ever. I know, Iris said softly. And I didn't want to ruin it by not being enough or needing too much or failing. You didn't ruin anything. Alara stepped closer. I've never felt anything like what I feel when I'm with you. And that terrifies me, but losing you terrifies me more. Iris's eyes softened. She still didn't move. What do you want from me, Alara? The question landed like a test. And for the first time, Alara didn't avoid the answer. I want the quiet mornings, the chaos in my kitchen. I want the way you touch me like I'm not made of armor. I want you. The air held. Then Iris opened the door wider. Then come in. Alara stepped inside. The door closed behind her and suddenly the world felt like it had weight again, but the kind you wanted to carry. Alara didn't sleep that night, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to miss a second. Iris had fallen asleep beside her on the small couch, legs tangled with hers, a blanket draped carelessly across them both, their bodies pressed together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting to fit. Alara lay there in the quiet dark, heart steady for the first time in days, staring at the ceiling as Iris's breath warmed her shoulder. There was no panic this time, no fear, just something slow and calm and terrifying in a different way. The weight of knowing she finally wanted to belong to someone. Morning came like honey through the blinds. Alara woke first again, but this time she didn't move. She just watched Iris sleep for a few minutes, memorizing the shape of peace on her face. When Iris stirred, she turned toward her with a sleepy smile and whispered, "You stayed. You let me?" Alara whispered back. Iris reached up, brushing a piece of hair from her face. "Are we okay?" "We're more than okay." And Alara meant it. She wasn't good at saying those things, but when she looked at Iris now, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could learn. They spent the rest of the morning like two people who had already chosen each other. Alara made coffee while Iris sat on the counter swinging her legs. They laughed. They argued about toast. They kissed between sips of coffee. Everything felt easy. Not perfect, but real. Later, when they were curled up in bed again, Iris turned to her and said, "What does love feel like for you?" Alara blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is it heavy? Is it soft? Does it scare you or hold you or both?" Alara exhaled. "It feels like standing at the edge of something high and not being afraid to jump." Iris smiled. "That sounds like trust." "Maybe it is. And have you ever felt that before?" Alara looked at her, really looked, "Not until you." The words weren't grand. They weren't rehearsed, but they were real. And Iris heard the weight in them. "Do you want this?" Iris asked, "Not just me. This, the messy mornings, the figuring it out, the showing up, even when it's hard." Alara didn't hesitate. "Yes." Iris nodded slowly. "Then we have to do it together. No hiding, no shutting down, no pretending we're not scared. I can do that even when you want to run. Especially then." "Good," Iris said. "Because I want to build something with you." And just like that, the air shifted again. Not in tension, but in depth. They weren't falling anymore. They were building together. Brick by brick, fear by fear. That night, back at Alara's place, Iris left a toothbrush in the guest bathroom. A book on the nightstand, a sweater in the closet. No declarations, no ceremony. Just quiet evidence of a woman who is slowly, surely becoming home. It was the little things that started to shake her. Not the nights, not the kisses, not the declarations whispered between half-asleep moments. No, Alara could survive those. She could savor them. What shook her was the toothbrush. The sweater, the book on her nightstand, opened and dog-eared. The sound of someone else's shower running in the morning. The fact that her closet no longer closed the same way because Iris's things were beginning to live there. It wasn't loss of space that scared her. It was the presence of permanence and the echo of a question she had never been brave enough to ask. What if I lose this? Iris didn't demand anything. She moved through Alara's world with grace and gentleness, always checking in, always asking, "Is this okay?" Before letting another part of herself slip into Alara's life. But Alara knew that letting someone stay wasn't just about saying yes. It was about believing they wouldn't leave. One night, they had dinner on the balcony. The sky was clear. The air was still. Alara had just opened a bottle of wine when Iris leaned forward, eyes soft but direct. "Are you happy?" Alara didn't answer immediately. She looked out at the skyline. The buildings she once believed were her only companions. "Yes," she said at last. "But I'm afraid of how much it matters." "Me, too," Iris said. "But I think that's what makes it real. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. And if it doesn't, then I'll ruin it." Iris reached for her hand. "You don't have to protect yourself from me. I don't know how not to." "Then let me show you." Alara looked down at their joined hands. "What if I need too much? Then I'll give more. And what if I can't give enough? Then I'll remind you that love isn't measured like that." Alara's throat tightened. "You make me want to believe in things I've spent years avoiding." "Then let them find you," Iris whispered. "Let me find you." Later that night, Alara woke up from a dream she couldn't remember, heart racing, breath uneven. Iris stirred beside her immediately. "Hey," she said, reaching for her. "You're safe. I'm here." Alara didn't speak, just buried her face in Iris's neck, arms wrapping around her like she was afraid she'd vanish. Iris didn't ask questions. She just held her firm, steady, real. In the morning, Alara found a note tucked under her coffee cup. Iris's handwriting, rushed and soft. "Loving you isn't hard. Loving you is like breathing. You just have to stop holding it in." Alara read it 3 times, then folded it gently and placed it in the drawer next to her bed, beside a ring she no longer wore and a photo she hadn't looked at in years. Iris wasn't replacing her past. She was rewriting Alara's future. And Alara, for once, wasn't fighting it. The love didn't fade. It deepened quietly like roots beneath the surface. Day by day, touch by touch, moment by moment, Alara found herself becoming someone new. Not someone weaker, someone braver. She no longer looked over her shoulder when Iris laughed too loudly in her home. No longer winced when her shirt was folded and placed in the same drawer as hers. No longer asked when she was leaving because now Iris didn't leave. She stayed. She cooked. She slept. She cried. She kissed. And Alara let her. But love, when real, doesn't stay small. It grows until it touches everything. Even the corners you tried to hide, especially those. And Alara, despite everything, still had corners. It started with a drawer, a locked one. Iris had never asked about it, never tried to open it. But one evening while searching for a pen, she accidentally pulled the wrong handle and it didn't open. Just a small click, a resistance, and Alara's voice, sharp and immediate. Don't. Iris froze. I wasn't trying to. I know. Alara stood in the hallway, tense, her eyes unreadable. Just don't. Iris nodded slowly. Okay. But something shifted after that. Not in Iris. She kept moving with the same soft steadiness. But in Alara, she became quieter, more withdrawn. She still held Iris's hand when they watched movies. Still kissed her good morning. But something behind her eyes had shuddered again. And Iris, patient but not blind, began to feel it. 3 days passed before she brought it up. They were sitting on the balcony again, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea. The city was quiet. What's in the drawer? Iris asked gently. Alara didn't answer, just stared at the skyline. You don't have to tell me, Iris added quickly. But I think it's telling that the only locked thing in this house is something you keep next to your bed. It's nothing. It's not. Silence stretched between them. Then Alara spoke. Letters from someone who left. Iris blinked. An ex. No, my brother. Her voice was tight, controlled. He died 5 years ago. He was the only person who ever really knew me. The only one who saw me before I became this. Alara, it's not just letters, she continued. It's everything I never said back. Every regret. Every time I thought about calling him and didn't. She exhaled slowly. And I'm afraid that if I open that drawer and you're here, it'll mean I've let go of him. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. Iris was quiet for a moment. Then she said, keeping him doesn't mean losing me, and letting me in doesn't mean erasing him. Alara looked at her, eyes rimmed with unshed tears. I don't know how to carry both. Maybe you don't have to carry alone anymore. Alara set her cup down. Her hands trembled. I've never said any of this out loud. You don't have to say it perfectly, Iris said. Just honestly. That night, Alara opened the drawer. She wasn't alone. Iris sat beside her on the floor, cross-legged and quiet. Alara lifted the letters one by one, old, creased, edges frayed. She didn't read them aloud. She didn't have to. She only held them, fingers shaking, breath unsteady. Iris set a hand between Alara's shoulders, steadying her, saying nothing. And when Alara finally whispered, I miss him, Iris answered, just as softly, I know. Something in Alara loosened then, not a collapse, but an opening, a making of room. They stayed there a long while. No tears, only truth. When they rose at last, Alara slid the letters back with care and left the drawer unlocked. Not open, unlocked. In the days after, everything between them deepened. Laughter felt gentler. Silences settled easier. Alara didn't need to explain herself anymore. Iris had learned her rhythms, the quiet days, the overthinking, the tiny twitch in Alara's hand before she reached out. She knew not to crowd every pause, to let certain wounds breathe. And Alara began to make space for Iris, not just in her home, but in her plans, her thoughts, her future. She stopped calling it temporary. She started calling it the life they were building. One night, brushing her teeth, Alara looked up and saw Iris behind her in the mirror, hair tousled, skin flushed from laughter, wearing Alara's robe as if it had always been hers. Alara met her own gaze and murmured, I don't know how I lived before you. Iris stepped close, wrapped her arms around Alara's waist, and murmured back, you survived. Now you're living. And Alara believed her. Just after midnight, Alara realized the fear was gone. Not the quiet. Not the closeness. Not the sound of Iris breathing beside her in bed, one arm draped loosely across her waist, as if it belonged there. Because it did. Iris had earned that place, not by force or insistence, but with patience, honesty, and the simple ways she never tried to fix Alara, only to know her. The realization didn't come with fireworks. It came softly like rain after weeks of drought. Alara lay there in the dark, her hand gently tracing the lines of Iris's spine beneath the thin fabric of her shirt, and thought, this is what it feels like to choose someone. Not to fall, not to be swept, but to choose every day, every hour, even in silence. Especially in silence, she pressed a kiss to Iris's shoulder. I love you, she whispered, not waiting for the right moment. Not needing to hear it back, just saying it because it lived in her now. Iris stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. Alara smiled. Go back to sleep. But Iris blinked, awake now, shifting to face her in the dark. Did you say something? Alara hesitated. Then steady, I said I love you. Silence. Then Iris with a sleepy smile and voice still heavy with dreams. Of course you do. Alara laughed surprised. That's your reaction? Iris brushed a thumb across Alara's cheek. You've been loving me for a while now. You were just waiting for permission to admit it. And who gave me that permission? You did. Alara's heart clenched in the best way. She kissed Iris then, slow, unhurried, like everything in her body knew this woman. This moment, this life. The next morning, they woke up tangled and warm, sun spilling over their bodies like silk. Alara made breakfast without burning it. Iris danced barefoot in the kitchen. They kissed over coffee, argued about how much sugar belonged in tea, and curled up on the couch with an old book and a blanket they now shared without thinking. Later, while Iris napped in the living room, Alara sat at her desk, the one she hadn't touched in weeks, and opened a blank page. She started to write not a contract, not a strategy, but a letter to herself, to the woman she used to be. She wrote about loneliness, about silence, about how long she had mistaken control for safety. She wrote about the first night Iris touched her, the first time she said yes, the first time she stayed. She wrote about what it meant to be soft and still be whole. About how love didn't make her weaker, it made her more herself. She didn't cry. Not this time. She just wrote. And when she was done, she printed it, folded it, and placed it inside the unlocked drawer next to the letters from her brother. She whispered, "Thank you," and closed it gently. That night, Alara invited Iris to a quiet dinner in the garden behind her building, a space no one knew existed but her. They sat beneath a canopy of soft lights and climbing roses. No staff, no noise, just them. Alara reached across the table, took Iris's hand, and said, "I want you to stay." Iris tilted her head. "I already do." "No, I mean all the way. Not just your books and sweaters. Your life. I want this to be your home." Iris's eyes glistened. "You're serious?" "I've never been more." Iris leaned in, kissed her hand, and whispered, "Then I'm yours." And Alara, for the first time, didn't flinch at the word. She smiled, open, full, and completely unafraid. The house no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a home. The walls that once echoed with silence now pulsed with laughter, the clinking of cups, the rustle of turned pages, and the soft rhythm of bare feet across hardwood floors. Alara had spent most of her life believing that love was a risk she couldn't afford, something volatile, unstable, something that would ask too much of her and give too little back. But Iris had changed that. Not through grand gestures, not through declarations shouted across storms, but through presence. Through the way she stayed, even in the silence, through the way she touched Alara like she wasn't fragile, but sacred. Through the way she listened, not to what was said, but to what was hidden beneath every word Alara had never known how to say. It had been 6 weeks since the night in the garden. 6 weeks since Alara said, "I want you to stay." And meant not for a night or a season, but for everything. Iris had moved in completely now. Her books filled the shelves. Her plants lined the window sills. Her laughter filled the mornings. And her hand always found Alara's in the quietest moments. In the car, in bed, in line at the market. Love had settled into the rhythm of daily life. It didn't burn like fire anymore. It glowed. One evening, Alara came home late, exhausted from meetings and negotiations, only to find the lights dimmed, soft jazz playing, and Iris standing in the middle of the living room holding 2 glasses of wine. You look like you need a moment, Iris said, stepping forward, offering the glass. Alara took it, their fingers brushing. I need more than a moment, she murmured. Iris smiled. Then take the whole night. Alara set the glass down. Can I ask you something? Anything? That first night when you found me watching the dancers, why me? Iris's eyes softened. Because you looked like a woman who had given everything to the world and never let herself be touched by it. And what did you think you could give me? A first dance. Alara exhaled slowly. You did. Iris stepped closer, her voice low and full of something steady. You never asked me to dance again. Alara tilted her head. Would you say yes? Every time. Alara took her hand. No music played. No guests watched. But in the middle of their own living room, they began to sway slow barefoot. No choreography, just presence, just breath. Just the soft sound of their hearts finding rhythm. Iris rested her head against Alara's shoulder. You still scared? She whispered. Yes, Alara replied. But I'm not running. Good. They didn't need music. The memory of it was enough. The night blurred around them. The city outside their windows kept living, but inside that room, time bent. Bent around the miracle of two women who had almost missed each other and didn't. Later, curled up on the couch, Iris played with Alara's fingers and said, You know what we should do? What? Leave the city for a while. Just us. Somewhere with green. Somewhere quiet. You hate quiet. Alara teased. Not with you. Alara nodded. We could go tomorrow. Iris blinked. Seriously? I have a driver. A house upstate. No schedule. We could leave tonight if you want. You do that for you? Alara smiled. Yes. The next day they drove north. Windows down. Hair tangled, no suits, no deadlines, just them. The house in the countryside was old, wrapped in vines, full of sunlight and creaking wood. Alara had never brought anyone there. She hadn't even been herself in years. But the moment Iris stepped through the front door, she turned and said, This feels like a place where people fall in love again. We haven't stopped, Alara replied. They stayed a week, walked barefoot through grass, swam in the lake behind the trees, cooked, burned things, laughed, fell asleep tangled on the porch couch with books open on their chests. They built rituals, morning coffee on the steps, afternoon naps in the sun, long baths and longer kisses. Every day, Alara said, I love you. Every time? Iris replied, I know. One night, with the windows open and rain ticking softly against the glass, Alara turned to her and whispered, You changed my life. Iris held her gaze, steady, unblinking. You let me. Alara cupped her face. You made me soft without breaking me. You were always soft, Iris breathed. You just forgot. And now you remember. Alara kissed her slowly, reverently, no longer afraid of the quiet, no longer bracing for a fall, because she had already fallen completely and landed in arms that caught her. In the morning, Alara woke to Iris dancing barefoot in the kitchen, no music playing, only motion, light, joy. Alara stood in the doorway and watched, remembering that night long ago when she'd stood still while everyone else danced. Locked inside a life that didn't know her, until a woman had murmured, You deserve a first dance. 2. And now she wasn't hiding in the shadows or waiting to be invited. She was dancing. If you enjoyed this and want to support the channel, consider tapping the thanks button below, the one with the heart and $sign. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution that helps me keep creating videos for you.